Well, let's have a look at the international games, where I think the one most interesting element of this is that the Vikings play back-to-back international games, and those are substituted in for road games. So they lose 2 road games off of their schedule and get to play the Steelers and Browns in Dublin and London consecutively in weeks 4 and 5. As we noted, the Lions, they will start their season out in Sao Paulo, Lawrence's favorite city in Brazil, against the Cardinals. We have Broncos Jets in London, Rams Jags also in London, Falcons Colts, which hopefully is a better spectacle for the Germans than Giants Panthers was last year. And then Commanders Dolphins in Madrid.
That's a pretty good game.
In España.
Madrid made out pretty well.
Yeah, Madrid's
Madrid's gonna be like, wow, this sport's awesome.
Yeah.
While Germany's like, what the hell are you doing now?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Anthony Richardson, is this how you guys throw the football?
Yeah. Anyway, anyone at NBC that's listening, if you need me to cover that game, Commanders Dolphins in Spain, I'm your guy.
Matty does Madrid.
Yeah,
Matty
exactly.
on tour.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
España.
Yes. Yeah. Ole.
Oh yeah, that's. Is that what they say? Okay.
Sure. Ole, huh?
Let's say hola to the bye weeks, the bye week schedule, as this is always particularly relevant for fantasy. What leaps out to you here, Matthew? Is there anything? Would you say just in general there is an ideal bye week as you head into a draft?
Yeah, you know what? There's a couple of things that jump out to me. First off, obviously, bye-mageddon, week 8. I'm glad that there's only 1 week where there are 6 teams on a bye, but man, oh man, look at that. The Lions with Gibbs, Goff, Laporta, Amon-Ra. You've got, Kyler Murray and James Conner and McBride and Harrison there. Kyron Williams, Puka with the Rams, Stafford. You got the Seattle guys, right? Ken Walker. And then you've got Genty on a bye that same week, along with Brian Thomas Jr. And the Jaguars. Whoever their running back, I think will be, is it
Bashal
Tuten there, with him. But so I mean, like, there's a lot of Ken Walker, Cooper Kupp, JSN all on a bye there in week 8. So that's a tough one. That kind of jumps out to me. Week 12, obviously, not only my Commanders with the running backs, Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, and McLaurin, but obviously the Dolphins with Tyreek and Achane, Bo Nix and the Broncos. We think R.J. Harvey's going to be a thing. You look at the Chargers, Ladd McConkey, Herbert, Amari and Hampton, all on week 12 as you're heading toward the playoffs. And then week 14, that is win or get in week, right? Most fantasy playoffs are going to start week 15, but yet once again in week 14 there's a bye now. So you got Malik Neighbors is going to be out, right? You're going to have T-Mac and Chuba Hubbard, the Chubbler.
The Chubbler.
It's going to be out.
Sideline Chubbler.
Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, and the 49ers, George Kittle, they're going to be out the week before you're trying to get into the playoffs. And then whoever emerges from we like TreVeyon Henderson this year. I think Stephon Diggs could have a bounce back year for the Patriots. So there'll be Drake May will, in Superflex leagues. So those are the things that sort of jumped out to me in the bye weeks.
I'm looking at the weeks 12 and the weeks 14 because, like you said, you're trying to get in the playoffs at that time. That's crucial. Crucial players will be out that week. So when you're doing your fantasy draft, Matthew, are you looking ahead of the buys, or are you just getting your guys and worrying about it later?
If I'm being honest, I'm just getting my guys and worrying about it later. Because I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you guys the same way, and just sort of I let the draft come to me. And so when you're sitting there with a minute on the clock, I'm not like
calculating.
Like, okay, let me think about this. All right, well, I've got these 3 guys on a bye, but let me, like, if I'm doing a best ball draft, then, I might target like a week 17 correlation. I'm looking more at schedules, but the schedule's baked into my rankings for doing the best ball. So it's already sort of baked in there. I'm kind of the, F it, I'll figure it out when I get there point of view.
You want to get your players, if you start out 7-0, 5-2, then that's not really going to matter once you get to weeks 12 and 14.
The other thing is like, listen, look, it's the middle of May, right? Okay, and so the NFL schedule got released last night, so we're talking about it. It's a lot of fun. And I think there are some fantasy edges, some betting edges that you can look at right now as we break it down. But the truth of the matter is, and we sort of hinted at this at the top of the show, is that we sort of don't know. Like a year ago at this time, everyone thought Washington was going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. We had no idea that they were going to be, a team that got all the way to the NFC Championship game. 2 years ago, Houston was considered one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Every
and then,
year,
CJ, every year there's always a team that sort of explodes. And no one expected the Vikings to win 14 games last year. So there's always going to be surprises that we can sit here and say oh, that's a tough game, that's an easy game. But until they get out there and they play and we sort of see, you just don't know.
New York Giants. Oh, wait, they sucked as
Yes,
expected.
There is something interesting with them, though, the Giants.
No,
with their schedule, their bye is week 14, which I don't love because we talked about how brutal the schedule is for them. The only entry point to make a move to Jackson Dart is very early in the year when they play the Saints, or the week 14 bye, unless he outright wins the job. So if Russ is struggling, that might make them go to Jameis instead of Dart because there's no soft landing.
That makes
So
sense.
week 14 bye for the Giants is not great.
No, it isn't. And by the way, Jameis to Malik Neighbors, please.
I was going to say,
please.
which might actually,
right,
it could have the Judy effect.
Yeah, but I mean, again, last year, we didn't think the Broncos were going to be nearly as good as they were. That Bo Nix was going to, explode in the way that he did. We liked him as a sleeper, but not in a significant way. Anyway,
Bo Nix explode. It's like a solid simmering, I'd say.
No,
He was very good.
We thought the Cowboys would be a lot better than they actually turned out to be, right? I mean, they're just, again, that's why they play the game.
So what you're saying is just let it play out.
Let it play out. Well, again, I think there are some edges. There are some things that we feel pretty good about in terms of the scheduling as we look at the bye weeks. But I just think it's important to caveat all this with the idea of the best laid plans, right? You just don't know until ultimately they play the game.
You mentioned Week 17, Matthew. Let's take a look at the Week 17 schedule where a lot of titles will be decided. The blockbuster between the Cowboys and Commanders in the NFC East, Lions, Vikings, Broncos, Chiefs, which could be for the AFC West, Bucks, Dolphins, Eagles, Bills, which could be a Super Bowl preview, Bears, Niners, which is the Sunday night game, and that very likely could have playoff implications, Rams, Falcons, and then Cardinals, Bengals, which was born to be a 54.5 total. Ravens, Packers, again, two contenders. Texans, Chargers. This week's 17 schedule is loaded with good matchups. Steelers, Browns, and then not so loaded. Jags, Colts, Patriots, Jets, Saints,
By the way,
Titans.
watch the Jags, because I think the Jags are going to be a really fun offense, with
the
Travis
Colts are
Hunter
gonna
and
be-
Brian Thomas Jr. and
This is
and
finally
Trevor
the
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence
And-
year.
Yeah, and Liam Cohen calling the plays. And so, Jags Colts could be one of those sneaky 45, 42 kind of games.
I think the Colts are going to be solid as well, though they are very high variance. New Orleans Saints perhaps not so high variance, but the Tennessee Titans are Seahawks, Panthers, and then Giants, Raiders to conclude Week 17. So what leaps out to you here, Matthew?
Well, a couple ones, and we've already talked about sort of Detroit's end of the season, and so, I mean, you could certainly see Lions, Vikings producing a lot of fantasy points and stacking. So again, in best ball, when you're in large-scale tournaments, you want to kind of look to Week 17 because if you can get there, you're trying to stack into a specific game and trying to a Week 17 correlation where it all sort of lines up for you. If that game goes off and you've got a lot of players in that, you can win a big tournament, win a lot of money. So Detroit and Minnesota is going to be one that gets targeted a lot. You mentioned Philadelphia at Buffalo. How about Tampa Bay at Miami?
That's what caught my eye.
Right? I mean, again, both offenses need to stay healthy, but when both offenses are rolling, a lot of fantasy points. I'm not sure Tampa Bay has figured out their defense yet either.
No, they've made some additions, but it's not going to be this juggernaut where Baker's not going to be in a throw script consistently enough. And now they're injury protected with Emeka Ibuka in town.
Yeah, you might see 80 passing attempts in that game.
Right.
Like you said, if everybody's healthy to that and you get to that point, you talk about the receivers in that game, you talk about the quarterbacks, just 2 point guards in their own right. That could be the shock and be the highest fantasy scoring game of the week, despite the Eagles and the Bills.
Tua needs to stay healthy. We say it every year, but when he does, friend of the podcast, Tirico Hill, told us he's going to be a top 3 fantasy wide receiver this year. He's going to be healthy. He's on a mission.
That means Tua got to be healthy.
Well, right, sure. But if Tua is healthy and Tyreek and a bounce back from Waddle, Jonnu Smith had we'll talk about him later in the show, but he had a breakout last year. Of course, we know about Achane. There's a lot of weapons on the Dolphins offense. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.